Do you need a chatting app but don't have the time to code one from scratch? Are you looking for a quick solution? By the end of this video, you'll be able to integrate a chat app to your web app. So let's get started. When I was looking for a solution, I was looking at these criteria. I wanted a chat app, not a chatbot, which Google search confused a lot. I wanted to have email notifications. I needed something cheap and good free tier, and something easy and ready that I can use with a mobile app for a responsive website, which led me to GetStream.io. I'm not sponsored. Now let's get started. The client is going to be running React and the server is going to be Express.js. The server is going to handle client requests, which will only have like 3 of them to keep it simple. We're going to need these libraries and install the dependencies with link I'll provide in the resources in the description. Also, I had to add CSS file to keep the chat more organized and more usable because the layout is a little bit weird. Next, in GetStream.io, the channel list comes separately, which is a bit weird. It really is a necessary functionality that you would expect from a chat app. These are my settings, and I've added a lot of documentation so you can understand better what the settings are. The most important thing here is that I've set up my current user ID. It's the ID of the person that's going to be logging in. Let's start with the main function. We're going to first ask the server for the API key. We don't just store it, hard code it inside the code because this is unsafe practice. Now, this is a place where I encountered a problem with the useEffect function, because useEffect function refreshes every time there is a state change, and the API key is a state change, and it's gonna run unnecessarily. To counter that, I've added an empty bracket at the end of the useEffect. This way the function only runs once. I also had another issue. I'm not really a JavaScript programmer, and asynchronous functions confuse me a little. So I've learned, and I'll explain why function getKey is the way it is. Since Axios is an asynchronous function, we have to wait for it to get a response from the server, which takes time, and we cannot continue without it, so we have to wait for it. However, in order to wait for it, which means use the await key, we have to be inside the asynchronous function. So getKey itself has to be asynchronous to await Axios function, which solves the issue. Now, when we get the response back from the server, we're gonna set the state API key to the API key, and we can work our way further. However, I personally prefer to work step by step because it's easier to debug. I like to make sure each step of the way works before continuing onwards. That's gonna help me save time and debug much quicker. So we are gonna hop in to the server real quick. For the server, we are gonna need these libraries, .environment, which lets us to separate sensitive information from the code, which you're gonna see an example in just a bit. We're gonna need Express, which makes the server more usable, and Course. Course is kind of like a firewall. It helps us secure our app, but we're not gonna set it up yet. We're just gonna make it accept all domains. Next up, we have the stream chat, which is obvious. And that's it. You're gonna have to download the dependencies, check out the resource in the description, and let's begin. First, we're gonna instantiate our chat client with our keys. Here you can see the .environment in action. Instead of putting our sensitive information in plain text, we're gonna access it through the environment variable. Now to do that, we're gonna create a .env file, and we're gonna copy our keys from the getStream dashboard. While we're at it, let's create also that gitignore file, so we do not by accident upload the sensitive information to the repository for everybody to see. Create that gitignore file and copy the contents from my resource to the file. These are just general security practices. Although this is not the main purpose of this video, I'm just flexing to make an impression on my future employer. Now, let's create the first route in our server, which is gonna be the /key to return the API key securely. Now, I always add some console log, which are kind of like debugging statements, so I can better see where does the process fall, if it does, so I can debug it precisely. Now we are back in the client. This is the second useEffect, and it's gonna run after the first useEffect runs successfully. We're gonna use the key we just retrieved from the server to connect to the stream chat app. Now, in order to connect the user to the app, we're gonna need a user token from the server. So we are gonna send a request to the server with the user ID we need. I've also added some information, which is email and name, because the way I've done it, user token root in the server does not only return a token, it also creates a user if it doesn't exist yet. So let me show you the server. So this is the user token root. At line 27, GPT gave me a nice one-liner, and we're gonna use mainly two functions here, which is the upsert and the create token one. We can only create a token if a user exists, and to create a user we're gonna upsert it. And what's good about it is, if the user already exists, upsert user function is not gonna do anything, so we can use it wastefully. I had a problem here because my fields, which was ID, I named it user ID, which caused an error and didn't let me to upsert a user, and I was very frustrated until I figured it out. So learn from my mistake and make sure that you name the fields correctly, as the API expects to get them. Now we can retrieve the user token by create token function and send it back to the client. Also, I wonder if I'd keep the database relations with users I already created and tokens I already retrieved, would that save me time? But I don't know yet how I would measure that. So right now I'm just focusing on quick deployability. Now that everything is ready at the client side, we can connect the user. Now, once the user is connected, naturally you would want him to be in the chat room so it's usable. We're gonna create a channel with two people and apply a watch function on it, which lets the user to join the channel and have some more advanced functionality that I'm not gonna go in detail about. Also, there's this neat trick where you can put a loading indicator if the client has not connected yet, and it makes the app more clean. Last step is the HTML you return. I've added dark mode because everything should be dark mode, and it should be working now. Honorable mentions would be Postmate app, which allows to send requests manually without browser. It's very useful to test the app and see responses from our server. Another one would be Code Sandbox. I would mostly code on my PC, but sometimes I'm gonna be away and code on my laptop. And I found it hard to use GitHub because the environment is completely different, and what works here does not always work on the other machine. The good thing about it is I can access the same environment from whatever machine. The app is deployed on the web and you can access it, which is amazing. And I could continue right where I stopped. And the support there was amazing because I've opened 2 tickets and the support team helped me and gave me suggestions within just 2 days. So to sum it up, you would now be able to deploy a chat app in your React application and have the easiest and the cheapest option on the internet. For any questions, post them down here. I'll answer everything. As for what's for next, I'm gonna be doing guides on useful tools and information and strategy and functionalities that would benefit businesses and side projects. Make sure do not forget to connect with me on X and come see my blog. Thank you, Mom, for watching.